Geoffrey Thompson of Melbourne, with previous experience of Japan, and Bede Whitman of Sydney are the men Cinesound sent to tell the world the story of Australia's to date numerically small but highly efficient part in the war in Korea. Iwakuni, southern Honsu, is the main base from which the air war against the North Koreans is being fought. It will be a startling fact to Australians that hundreds of skilled Japanese now work side by side with our own men in keeping the aircraft flying. 5 years ago, Korea was Japanese territory. The Japs apparently have no wish to see the United Nations forces thrown out. Concentrated small arms fire by North Korean infantry has achieved some success, and this bullet-damaged fuselage is proof of it. The hot seat. Japs ride in on 500-pound bombs for the Mustangs, which also carry rockets and heavy machine guns. They're hard-hitting fighters. Commanding officer of 77 Squadron is quiet, efficient Wing Commander Lou Spence, DFC. Each morning he says so long to his wife and children, and like millions of civilians, leaves for the office, which happens to be the Korean front line. When he says he's had a hard day at the office, his wife believes him. In operations room, intelligence deals out the gen for the day's strike. Interest is in the Taegu Bulge, where North Koreans are making an all-out effort to capture the city and vital airstrip. They will strike at the enemy within 5 miles of the strip. The boys move out to their aircraft. This is Japan's midsummer. Temperatures are high and humidity extreme. These Australian pilots have earned the complete respect of the Americans because of their achievements in action. They have played an important part in helping to stiffen morale of ground forces, which had been gravely affected by overwhelming numbers in opposition and early lack of tanks and other weapons. It is important to recall that the war broke out in Korea on June the 25th, and the men of the Australian squadron went into action alongside the Americans 8 days later, the first United Nations unit to do so. Spence gives the signal and the planes move out. Aircraftsmen fit a Cinesound camera on remote control and a Mustang belly tank. It will bring you some mighty thrilling pictures in a few minutes. Iwakuni control shows the green light and the squadron's away. This time you go with them, seeing what they see through the camera's eye. To Jap peasants, the Mustangs are a familiar sight, but it's doubtful if they realize their significance. They have little use for politics. That might apply to Spence's kiddies, too. Thompson flew in a Dakota loaded to the plimsoll with bombs and rockets to rearm the Mustangs after their first strike. Whitman rode in a Whittaway, batting along at a rugged 180 miles per hour with the Mustangs throttled back so that he could hold them. The coast of Korea is ahead. The rugged terrain below will give a new appreciation of the enormity of the task of the raw, young American troops who first came to grips with the North Koreans in this type of country. The city of Taegu. It's a sizable town, largely evacuated because it's under northern shell fire. Tens of thousands of refugees from the north camp temporarily in that riverbed before continuing their weary, hopeless trek south. Air Force estimate of this mass living in tents is 40,000. Seconds out of Taegu, we're over the enemy lines. Loosing rockets, bombs and machine gun fire, the Australian-built Mustangs slash at troop concentrations. Guerrillas sheltering in foxholes and buildings suspected of harboring tanks. From our high perch, it's not easy to sight objectives, but the Aussie pilots seek out the gooks like hounds on the scent. Let's go down with them. Has proved expensive and not very effective against the enemy's guerrilla tactics. But this dropping method throws him into confusion, weakens his troops' morale. The country is alive with North Koreans. If they're not well under cover, they haven't much of a future. There's a rocket from the fighter ahead, and she shoots away like a flash. Out Out of ammunition, the squadron turns for Daegu airstrip. It's only a matter of feathering motors and gliding in. Daegu is being stoutly defended. It's the gateway to Busan, the only worthwhile port still open to the United Nations, and through which must come the men and munitions for the inevitable drive north. The Mustangs are down for refueling and rearming, and the Dakota we brought with us sheds her cargo to Americans, Australians, Japs, and Koreans. The wind-up for a second edition of Bad News for the North Koreans takes no time at all. Meantime, let's look round the strip, beginning with what the Yanks still call the chow line, an expression perhaps a little near the knuckle in Korea. Americans and Australians work in the closest cooperation. Here are the beginnings, at least, of a real United Nations effort. A constant alert is maintained with glasses trained on the sky and the nearby hills. Off they go for another bash, as the Aussie pilots put it. The Mustangs are having it all their own way at present with practically no air opposition, but they often cop plenty from down below. Tanks are hidden in buildings, camouflaged as haystacks in daylight. Anything suspicious gets it. Tribute can be too high to the skill and daring of these Australian pilots. It's terrible flying country and very uncomfortable if a forced landing becomes necessary, but they never let up day after day, going to the office, doing a dangerous job as readily and as easily as if they were out selling vacuum cleaners in suburban streets. This valley's had it for today, and the enemy down there can't be as happy as he was. Probably a proportion of his numbers couldn't care less about anything, and won't anymore. That's the way it is in war. The strike has been highly successful, and Spence calls his squadron together and heads for home in Japan. Back at Iwakuni base, sirens wail as personnel practice air raid precautions, using the returning Mustangs as hostile aircraft. Should the enemy acquire bombers from somewhere or other, this airbase would be #1 objective. Any day, Iwakuni could be attacked. The fire tender stands by in case anyone comes to grief in landing. But there are no accidents and the squadron's down. Home in time for dinner, in fact. None of them were detained at the office. They go out of the machine straight into intelligence, where they tell the story of the day's events, each from his own perspective. And the wing commander dots the I's and crosses the T's. Spence is a grand leader. Without loss of time, the planes are serviced, refueled, and rearmed for the morning takeoff. A repetition of what we've shown you today. And then the mess for a beer and some first-class line shooting, as the boys call it. But you wouldn't find a boast in a cartload of their conversation. They are the real stuff, these young Australians, and American appreciation comes in an unexpected visit from American General George A. Stratmayer, commanding officer, Far East Air Forces, under whose general direction the squadron operates. The general pins the American Legion of Merit on Spence as a genuine tribute to his leadership and to the grand group of men he commands. Tomorrow the squadron goes out again, and the next day, and the next week, and the next month, until the job is finally done. The United Nations have begun something in Korea they must finish, or this long-suffering world will never again know the sweetness of peace in our time, wherein men can live without fear.